The Gambler by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Retold by Catherine Sklerova. Chapter 12. I remember how she looked into my eyes. "I've just won 100,000 francs," I cried, still pulling out my last banknotes. The pile of banknotes and gold occupied the whole table. I could not withdraw my eyes from it. For a moment I didn't think of Polina. I began to sort the banknotes and the gold into separate heaps. As I did it, I left everything where it lay and lost myself in thought. Then I went to the table once more and began to count the money until suddenly I remembered something. I rushed to the door and closed it quickly. Then I looked at my trunk. "Should I put the money there until tomorrow?" I asked, turning to Polina as the recollection of her returned to me. She was still in her old place. She didn't make a sound, yet her eyes followed my movements. There was a strange expression on her face which I didn't like. I approached her. "Polina," I said, "there are 100,000 francs on the table. Take them. Now you do not depend on your stepfather and his debts. Now you're an independent person at present." All of a sudden, she began to laugh, and she laughed for a long time. I watched her with astonishment and offense. This laughter made me feel very uneasy. At last she stopped laughing and looked at me seriously. "I'm not going to take your money," she said scornfully. "Why not, Polina?" "Because I cannot receive money for nothing. But I am offering it to you as a friend, in the same way I would offer you my own life." As I said this, she looked me into my eyes for a while. "I cannot accept your money. Oh, I hate you. Yes, I hate you. I love you no more than I do the Greers." "Oh, Polina, how can you speak so?" I cried. Then she closed her face with her hands and began to cry loudly. I rushed to her side. I had a presentiment that something was happening to her which had nothing to do with me. She was like a mad person. "Do you want to buy me? Would you buy me for 100,000 francs?" she cried between her sobs. I hugged her with my arms, kissed her hands, and fell on my knees before her. Presently her sobs passed away, and she put her hands on my shoulders. She looked at my face for a while, as though trying to read something. Her face looked dark and distressed. Then she pushed me away. I didn't move. A moment later she fell on her knees beside me. "Do you love me?" she asked. Then she laughed and cried at the same time. What could I do? I was like a man with a fever. I remember that she began to say something to me, though what I could not understand. At intervals she would look at me with a smile which I was beginning to fear. No, she continued. "You are the man I trust. Do you really love me? Will you always love me?" I could not take my eyes off her. I had never seen her in this mood before. True, this mood was the result of hysteria. Then, for no reason, she began to talk of Mr. Astley. She continued talking and talking about him. I could not understand her. In general, she seemed to be laughing at Mr. Astley. She said that he was waiting for her. I asked her whether it was true. Yes, it is true. He is waiting for me there. Open the window and see if he is not." She pushed me in that direction. When I tried to stand up, she began to laugh loudly. I remained beside her, and she embraced me again. "Will we go tomorrow?" she asked presently. "What about Berlin first? And what about Mr. Astley too? He would not jump from the Schellenberg for my sake, would he? No, he would not do that, I am sure of that. Well, he's a good man. At the same time, for example, he doesn't blame the general for the current affairs. How poor these people are. I'm sorry for them. Do you know where Mr. Astley is going next? He says he wants to go to the North Pole of scientific investigations. He invited me to go with him. Ha ha ha. He also says that we Russians know nothing, can do nothing without European help. Anyway, he's a nice man. But when are you going to kill the Greers? You're fool. I will not allow you to kill him. How absurd you looked when I asked you to kill him. It was only a joke." Then she kissed and embraced me again. I neither saw her nor heard her, because my head was in a whirl. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning when I woke. Daylight had come, and Polina was sitting by my side. There was a strange expression on her face. She was looking at the money on the table. My head ached. I tried to take Polina by the hand, but she pushed it away and jumped from the sofa. She moved to the window and opened it to take the air. It was raining. She stood still for several minutes without looking at me or listening to what I was saying. There were strange thoughts in my head. What will happen now? How will it all end? What will she decide? Suddenly she approached the table and looked at me with hatred. "Well, are you going to give me my money? It is mine, isn't it?" she asked. "Yes, it has always been yours." "Then take it all back," she cried and hurled the money into my face. The floor was covered with banknotes. She didn't move for a moment, and then she rushed out of the room. At that moment she must not have been in her right mind. Yet What was the reason of her hysteria, I cannot say. Had it happened because of her pride or of her despair over her decision to come to me? I still think it was her pride which kept forcing her not to trust me and insult me when possible. Then why did she come to me? No, she must have known what she was doing when she came to me. I put the piles of banknotes and gold under the bed and covered them with a blanket. I left the room some 10 minutes after Paulina. I felt sure that she had returned to her own room. I went towards her room. To my great surprise, her maid told me that Paulina had left 10 minutes ago. I was surprised to hear that. Already some rumors were flying around the hotel. It was said that at 7 o'clock that morning, Paulina Alexandrovna had left the hotel despite the rain. She had been very distressed and confused. Also, some rumors were circulating about the general's family affairs. It was known that last night he had lost his mind and left the hotel in tears. Also, that the old lady who had departed was his mother, and that she had come from Russia to forbid her son's marriage with Mademoiselle Blanche, as well as cut him out of her will if he disobeyed her. Also, that because he had disobeyed her, had to decide to gamble away all her money at roulette in order to have nothing more to leave him. Also, everyone had learned about my winnings. The landlord was the first to congratulate me, but I had nothing to do with these people. I went out of the hotel to visit Mr. Astley. It was an early hour for Mr. Astley to receive visitors, but as soon as he learned that it was I who arrived, he came out into the corridor to meet me. He looked at me silently. I asked after Paulina. She is ill. She's in my suite, he replied. And does she want to stay with you? Yes, she wants to stay with me. But Mr. Astley, it will create a scandal. Besides, she's very ill. A doctor visited her and examined her carefully. She told me everything about you. Really? Then you know all about it. Tell me if it's true that last night you won 100,000 francs, he asked. Yes. Good heavens. Then I suppose you will go to Paris this morning. Why? Because all players who have become rich go to Paris, explained Mr. Astley. But what can I do there without Paulina? I love her, Mr. Astley. Surely you know that. Really? I'm sure that you do not love her. Moreover, if you stay here, you will lose everything that you have. Well, goodbye now. I'm sure that I will not see you again in this city. I'm not going to Paris. What will happen to Paulina? She has a perfect right to live where she chooses. The general's family has ceased to exist. Goodbye, I said. I departed. I was very sorry for Paulina. From the moment when I approached the gaming table last night and began to win, my love for her had changed. Yes, I can say that now. Was I the gambler? Did I love Paulina not very much? No, I loved her. When I returned home from Mr. Astley, my sufferings were real and sincere. After a few hours, there was a knock at my door. I opened the door and saw Mademoiselle Blanche before me. Oh, is it true that you have 100,000 francs? She asked. I nodded with a smile. She entered the room and closed the door behind her. I will take you to Paris. You will see Paris. What do you think about that? You were very stupid when you were a teacher. I will show you everything there. You will be as happy as a king. All I need is 50,000 francs. Stop a moment. If I give you 50,000 francs, what would I have left for myself? Another 50,000 francs, she replied. Besides, I will live with you in the same hotel for about 3 months, or even longer. But it would not take us more than 3 months to spend 50 francs. What? You mean to say that there will be spent the whole money in 3 months? Certainly. Why does that surprise you so much? Oh, my poor teacher. 3 months of that life would be better than all your previous life. Well, will you go with me to Paris? The train leaves after 1 hour. She left my room as suddenly as she had entered it. I sat in my room with my head in a rail. It was not my fault that Paulina refused the money and preferred Mr. Astley to myself. I collected all my money and put it into my trunk. After 1 hour, it was on a train to Paris with Mademoiselle Blanche next to me. I didn't feel cheerful. My life had broken into two, but I had already gotten used to staking everything on one card. Will I fail to win my stake? Did I lose my senses? I wanted to change my life for a while. I was sad and unhappy. What is the matter with you? She asked me. Don't be sad. We are going to spend all your money in a few months. I will introduce you to the most famous people in Paris. When we spend your money, you will become back to Roulettenberg and win again. It is not the first time. You will go to Paris again with more money in your pockets. But what about the general? I asked. The general? Well, when he returns home, he will find a bird flower. I do not care what will happen to him. All he can buy from me is a simple bouquet of flowers. That is how I departed for Paris.